Hello, welcome to David Joyner Art Academy. I'd like to go over some of the supplies you'll need to buy if you want to paint along with us at home. First we'll go over brushes. I'd say 90% of the paintings that I complete inside of my studio are painted using one of these 5 varieties of brushes right here. Okay. First you got a flat. It works really well for painting large areas in the background, and also works good for foliage, trees, and like I say, the smaller the flat, the smaller detail you can get. Like I say, this is works, but like I say, majority of it is used for background. This is known as a filbert. It's similar to a flat, except it's got the rounded edges. Works well for painting anything you don't want a hard edge on. The flat brush, due to its square shape, will leave you an edge, whereas the filbert will be a soft edge because it's rounded. So clouds, anything that has like a round shape to it, I'd use a filbert. Okay. This is known as a round. This works really well for detail work. Say for instance eyes, noses, any sort of facial features, lines, that you want to make going down a figure. It works really well for that. That's known as a round. Okay. This is known as a spiky comber, also known as a rake or a wisp brush. I use this for painting my undercoat of fur on my mammals. It works really well. As you can see, whenever you splay it apart, you'll get individual strands for the fur. Now, for anything that's on the surface of the animal, for fur, I use what's called a rigger or a script brush. This you load up with paint, and you can get each individual strand of fur like this. So, whereas with the spiky comber, they're all going the same direction pretty much, and this you could do all different kinds of things and make it go a little crazy, which makes your painting much more interesting. Alright, and that's I'd say 90% of the brushes I use are one of those 5 varieties right there. Okay. Now as far as canvases go, I use MDO board. My horse was painted on MDO board. It comes in 4x8 sheets, 4x8 foot sheets of plywood, and then you have it cut down to the size you want. These are 18 by 24 inch pieces of board that I paint on currently. It works really well. Now, if you want to go with convenience, I would. Oh, hang on. This is what the MDO board looks like unfinished. Okay. And this is going to be our next painting project we'll be doing this week. We're going to use this board. So. Now if you want convenience, something that's already prepared for you as far as the board, I would recommend ampersand board. This is known as hardboard. You go to any art supply store and ask them for ampersand, and they will be able to show you hardboard, and this works really well. It just works out to a little bit more expensive than the MDO board, and I was going for to be more cost efficient. So, but this works really well. This was painted years ago, and as you can see, it's very resilient. It's very sturdy and works really well. So, now the most reasonable way to go is a cheap piece of canvas like this. It works well. It's not my personal choice because, as you can see, it's a little more flimsy, but like I said, it's a preference. Some people that are professional artists prefer to paint on canvas. I don't. I'd rather paint on board, but that's your preference. And for a beginner, this is a cheap way to go. So if you want to go more reasonable, you can get a pack of these at any art supply store for probably less than $10. So you could probably get 3 canvases in there. So, alrighty, now that's the surfaces I paint on. Next we'll go through the paint itself. I'll do another video on paint because it's a more extensive subject, but I use golden paint most exclusively. I also use Liquitex some, not to the extent that I do the golden Liquitex, and that's golden. Like I said, if you want to go a little more reasonable, especially when you're learning, you can get student grade paint, which is far cheaper, and then whenever you practice and get better, you can upgrade to a professional grade like this. The difference is these are really highly pigmented, so a little bit of paint will go a long way, but they're also more expensive. So when you're practicing, you may want to get student grade paint, and then whenever you get to the point where you feel comfortable, then invest in the professional grade. So, but if you buy the professional grade from the very beginning, you could do that. There's nothing wrong with it. Just realize that you're going to mess up in the beginning, and it can get expensive. So I'll leave that up to you. But either way, you'll get a painting out of it. Just the end result won't be hardly the same. So okay. Mainly would be the vibrancy of the colors won't be as intense as with the professional grade if you get student grade paint. Alright, so we went over paintbrushes, canvases, and boards. Actual paint. You need a palette. What I would recommend is something called a stay wet palette. Acrylic paint dries super quick. Within a matter of minutes, you will have paint that will be unusable. So if you, or I won't say unusable, it'll be harder to use. Within a matter of probably 20 minutes, it will be dry, so dry you won't be able to paint with it. So I normally, with me, within 5 to 10 minutes, it's unusable. It depends on how humid it is. We live in Florida, so most of the time I can get probably 15 minutes out of it to where I can still remove it with a Q-tip. But it, you once it goes past about 5 to 10 minutes, you can't paint with it. So I'd recommend getting a stay wet palette. As you can see, it's sealed, so it keeps it airtight. It has a sponge underneath. You keep moist. And then you put the piece of paper that you can get from Stay Wet palettes, which are made by Masterson, and then put that on top, and that keeps your paint moist. Okay. Now it still will dry out, but you'll get way more use out of your paint if you invest the $10 to $15 in a Stay Wet palette. That one investment will save you countless dollars in paint. So because you'll waste a lot if you just put it on paper plate and paint that way. You could do that, it's cheaper, but just so you know, you won't waste the paint because that acrylic paint will dry really quick. If you do that, what I would recommend is getting a spray bottle, and every now and then spraying a sponge and putting it in the middle of your paper plate, and that will keep the paint moist. It won't work as well as this, but it will do some effect. So, but like I say, I would recommend getting a Stay Wet palette, but that's just my preference. Okay. All right, and you need some sort of basin to clean your brushes off in. This is what I use. It's got little grooves in here to where you can put your paintbrushes. They're right there. It works really well. And if you live in an area like I do that has really bad water, I would recommend buying distilled water. That's all I paint with is distilled water. And you go to Walmart and spend 60 cents on a gallon of water, and it will last you, many paintings. But if you use tap water and it's bad, like ours, we have iron water, it will turn your paint yellow. So you don't want that. So I'd recommend spending the money on distilled water and painting with that. especially if you live in an area that has bad water. Now, if you live somewhere that has good water, you know, you might get away with just using regular tap water. But anybody that lives in areas that have bad water, I would not paint with regular tap water. Okay. A couple more things. Q-tips. These work like little erasers. You wet them, and then you can get that paint off really quick before it dries. Like I say, the acrylic paint will dry super quick, so you need to have these really handy and keep them at your side. They're invaluable. Q-tips. Can't live without Q-tips. And paper towels for wiping off larger areas of paint that you made a mistake on. And trust me, you will make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. So I use paper towels all the time because no one's perfect. So, and the Q-tips, erasers. All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would recommend. There's other incidental supplies that you will need later on down the road, but we'll go over those whenever we come to them. That's the canvases, the brushes, the paint, paper towels, Q-tips, palettes, and a wash basin are what you need to get started. Okay, if you have any questions, you can type them below and I will answer them at my earliest convenience. Thank you so much, and remember that you are an artist. Thank you.